That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
The British Constitution provides that taxation and representation shall go together. Therefore, women taxpayers are entitled to vote.
I have a dream today. Let freedom ring, and if America is to be a great nation, this must become true.
Hi, welcome to episode 19. Today I'm going to challenge myself to fit as many metaphors as I can into this introduction. So hang on, here we go. You know, in the grand, messy tapestry of 21st century life, it seems like existential crises loom larger than my laundry pile. And there's this deceptively simple phrase that's been tossed around like a hot potato at a family barbecue, right? Doing your best. On the surface, it's the kind of advice that sounds as profound as a fortune cookie message. It's vague, optimistic, and mildly irritating because you know there's a kernel of truth in it that you're not fully grasping. But let's peel back the layers, like an Outback Steakhouse bloomin' onion, shall we? Because understanding what doing your best truly means is kind of like unraveling the mysteries of the universe. Or at least figuring out why, despite your best efforts, you aren't making the progress that you should. So let's start like we always do with our Blue Thread proverb of the week. And this week it's number 23. Self-improvement defies gravity. What this really means is, like every improvement effort, when we first begin, it's difficult. It's difficult because we have to develop new habits and new ways of doing things. We got to get to the gym to work out. We've got to stay away from that ice cream and cookies just before bed, right? And we're so used to doing things, it's hard to break out of it. So it seems tough. But once we get rolling and we start to see the benefits, it becomes almost automatic, right? That's why we say that self-improvement defies gravity. And what we're going to talk about here today, doing your best, what it really means, what it really can mean, is that kind of effort. So if you try a few of the things we're going to talk about today, I think you're going to find out that it's going to give you wings and lift you up. So let's start with why this phrase, doing your best, is so misunderstood. It's kind of the elephant in the room. The gross misunderstanding of what doing our best really means. First of all, it's not about being the best, right? This ain't a Highlander movie. There can be more than one version of what best looks like. It's not about beating yourself up for not achieving a perfect presentation or Instagram level perfection on your first try. It's about learning. It's about managing your effort, not always trying your hardest, because sometimes that can actually negate progress. It's about growth, resolve, resilience, all those things that we've talked about on this podcast already. I kind of like to say it's like throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks. And if it doesn't stick, we learn how to make better spaghetti, right? So I want to begin here with looking at what I call the layers of bestness. Layer one, context is king. Context is king. Your best isn't a fixed point, right? It's not a spot on the horizon that you can continuously drive toward. I guess I'd like to say it's more like aiming at a moving target on a windy day. What constitutes your best on a day when you're well rested, motivated, and caffeinated, it's going to look wildly different than your best on a day when you're running on 3 hours of sleep. And the existential dread of failure is particularly loud inside your head. And recognizing this is crucial because otherwise, if you can't realize that some days your best is better than other days, you're going to constantly be like that mythical guy, what was it, Sisyphus, who's always pushing the boulder up the hill only to have it roll back on top of him, right? So layer one is context. Realize your best, my best, are going to look different depending on what we bring to the fight and what the challenge is. Layer two is what's inside us. I call it the inner critic, right? And the inner critic has dubious taste in music. You know, I love to use musical metaphors. So inside each of us, we have an inner critic, especially those of us who are trying to get better. And unfortunately, it has kind of a terrible taste in music. It always wants to play heavy metal death rock, right? Same negative tunes. Doing your best involves learning how to change the station. It might not always have your best interests at heart to be self-critical, right? So depending on what your circumstances and situation is, you may actually be doing a lot better than you think. You may have set unrealistic expectations, right? And if you're listening to heavy metal catastrophe music all the time, try a little smooth jazz and just sit back and let things happen for a while. Layer 3, sticking with my musical metaphor, I call it growth mindset disco. And I actually lived through the disco era. I've got some pictures to prove it. Platform heels, long hair, leisure suits, long silk collars. I digress. There's a lady out there, a very smart lady named Carol Dweck, D-W-E-C-K. And she's sort of the queen of growth mindset theory. And she probably loves a good disco because the way that she goes at things is about embracing challenges and learn a few dance moves, right? Embracing criticism, find lessons, trying it again, right? So doing your best is like learning new dance moves on the lighted dance floor of life, right? With everybody watching. It's about walking up there, giving it your best shot, and knowing that you might step on some toes as you're dancing, but you keep dancing anyway. That sort of reminds me of an Elvin Bishop song. What's it? Elvin Bishop. Look him up, YouTube him. The song's called Strutting My Stuff. And basically, he's not afraid to put it out there. And I think that growth mindset requires us to put it out there. So why is this also important, right? Why is this idea of layers important? The context, your inner critic, how you listen to yourself. It's more important than a lot of things in life, but it's not the most important thing, right? You can't become so driven at getting better that it actually adds stress to the equation, right? Yeah, it's probably more crucial than remembering your mother-in-law's birthday. But at the end of the day, it's the bedrock of personal development, right? It's the bedrock of resilience following failure. Ultimately, though, what it's going to give you is something hugely important. Authentic self-esteem that you've grown with the resources you have available to you. And authentic self-esteem leads to real happiness, right? It's what separates those who see challenges as mountains they need to somehow find a way around, and from those who see them as something to be climbed, right? Maybe even skied down the backside. So here's 5 reasons why this is so important. When we're able to understand how and what doing our best really looks like and means, it gives us the ability to build resolve and resilience. And we talk about those all the time. Understanding and embracing your best efforts and your best achievements, right? Even when they don't automatically result in the outcomes you want, helps you learn to continue to push through the blows of failure. It's the difference between I failed and I'm useless, and I failed but I learned something, right? So let's try this again. Let's take another shot at this mountain. Slightly different route up to the top, but that's number one. It builds resilience and resolve. The second thing it does is once you begin to defy the gravity of self-improvement, it encourages further growth. When you begin to focus on what it looks like to do your best on a given day with a given set of circumstances, you're inherently focused on learning and improvement and not just end results, right? And in this crazy world, you see a lot of things that say results are everything. Well, maybe in the long term, that's true. But if you look at it, every project, every effort, every attempt you make at doing something as a success or a failure, you're going to miss the big result, which is I'm growing, I'm getting better, and I'm going to be able to handle these things much better in the future. And this This perspective kind of turns your life into a perpetual classroom, even with all the surprise quizzes that we don't like, right? The third thing is that when you're growing as you're doing, and you are picturing what the top of the performance ladder looks like, whatever your definition of best is on a given day, you're enhancing your satisfaction, right? Especially in the face of adversity, and we face adversity every day. Any small success is intensely satisfying unless that inner critic of heavy metal death music tells us we failed or we should have done better, right? So I like to think of it as, I'm not a big video game guy because I get stuck on the first levels, but it's kind of like beating that level on a video game that you've been stuck on for weeks, man. It's like pure unadulterated joy. I know there's 8 levels above me yet, but I made this one step today. I got 2 more. There's more coming, and we'll get to those in just a minute, right after a word from our sponsor.
Have you ever finished the latest bestseller on habits or personal performance and asked, yeah, okay, but how? All the improvements you visualize while reading the books require one thing to achieve in your own life: deliberate practice, a new way of focusing attention inside the routine to drive consistent improvement with every experience. Focused on getting the biggest impact from your career development opportunities, the Deliberate Practice of Professionalism course from Convergent Performance teaches you the steps and requirements to achieve improvement and mastery of your targets. Discover how deliberate practice can springboard your improvement efforts, no matter what they might be or your current skill level. Join us on our website at convergentperformance.com and click the link for e-learning to sign up for this exciting program today.
Okay, back to the reasons that doing your best, however we are going to end up defining this, is really worth doing. We uncover a treasure trove of new reasons why this isn't just another self-help cliche, but rather kind of a secret sauce that we mix ourselves, right? And rather than saying things, I should have done that differently each and every time, we say, here's what I learned that I may have as an option to do differently in the future, right? It's forward focused, not rearview mirror looking. So here's a couple more nuggets of wisdom to chew on. The fourth reason we want to do this is because it fosters something incredible: creativity, innovation, and problem solving. When you're committed to doing your best, you're essentially giving yourself permission to experiment, to try new things, think outside of that proverbial box. And this is fertile soil, at least for me, from which creativity and innovation grows. I often sit for hours, sometimes days, on occasion weeks, stuck on where do I fit this new pearl of wisdom that I'm so excited to develop into the overall web of a book or a presentation, or is this something entirely new, right? And so instead of saying this is never going to fit, I look at the problem and say, well, what if this became the anchor and now I attach something to it? Or what if this got broken apart and I sprinkle little bits in? Instead of saying, I can't figure out how to do this because I know I've done similar things in the past, I don't say I can't, I say what if. And it's the sort of the mental equivalent of, turning that cardboard box into a spaceship, right? When we were kids, right? Imagination and effort combined to create extraordinary things. So number 4, the reason we want to seek to do our best and not just slam up against things over and over and over again is because it fosters that creativity, innovation, and problem solving. And the 5th one, we've talked about this a lot, and it's kind of a buzzword out there, but it's an important buzzword. It strengthens our emotional intelligence, mostly our emotional intelligence about what we're feeling and how to regulate ourselves. So understanding that doing your best truly requires a hefty dose of self-awareness and self-regulation, where we recognize our emotions when we face setbacks or criticisms, or we get behind a timeline, and we manage those in a way that's constructive rather than destructive. So we grow more emotionally aware of what is a positive way to use a negative emotion, like I'm really upset I didn't get this done, and turn that into something where we learn a few lessons from it so that we don't have to suffer from it again in the future, right? So we learn those things as we go along. So those 5 areas. And let's not forget, and this could have been a 6th area, I guess, but it's not about doing it alone either. As we gain this emotional intelligence about ourselves, we learn where our limitations are. So we know when to ask for help, when to collaborate, when to lean on others for advice, right? It's what I like to call that secret handshake of the highly effective and moderately stressed. It's why I keep asking you for feedback every podcast, because I need it to get better. I can do 100 of these, and this is what, 19? We're going to get to 100. That's a promise. I can't make these worthwhile to you unless I get feedback from you, right? So those are a few reasons why our understanding of what it means to do your best is so important, because it helps us unlock a life that's rich with meaning, right? Occasionally punctuated with moments of triumph where we feel like, man, I didn't think I could ever get that done, or I didn't think I'd ever be able to do this, right? Reminds me of finding an open Wi-Fi somewhere when you say, I got to get on the internet. And all of a sudden, beep, something comes up and you can get on, right? It transforms the mundane moment, the frustrating moment into an, okay, here we go, right? It's an opportunity. Your best is going to be good enough, right? Always. Maybe not to achieve a specific goal, but it's going to be good enough to drive you forward and make you better. But sometimes it's downright spectacular. You have breakthroughs. You're in that zone between anxiety and boredom because you're pushing yourself to higher levels. So how do we really go about doing our best? We've talked a lot about why we do it. How do we do it in a way that doesn't require, running up steps in Philadelphia like Rocky? So the first thing is to understand we have to be a little bit gentle on ourselves, a little bit of self-compassion. Your best is going to vary. That's okay. Some days it may be nailing a presentation at work, and other days just remembering to put on pants before you get on a Zoom call or something. The second thing that we've already talked about a little bit is it will cultivate this idea that I'm growing, growth mindset. It will see every experience, whether you previously deemed it as a success or a failure, as an opportunity to learn and get a little bit better. And finally, it teaches you to listen to and manage that inner critic, right? Some days you need the heavy metal rock, and some days you need the smooth jazz. But you learn to kind of thank that inner critic for its concern. And then when necessary, show them the door, right? Because we don't have a lot of time for negativity. Sometimes we need it, but we can't let it dominate us. So the bottom line is kind of doing your best is complex. It's layered. It's about effort, growth, resolve, resilience, all those things. But here's what it's not about. It's not about the outcome, and it's not about comparison, especially to others. It's about comparison to what you might have been able to do. We're going to talk about how you do that in just a second. It's about understanding that your best is going to vary from day to day, and that's just fine. It's not only fine, it's expected, right? And it's about learning to manage and have a nice discussion with that inner critic of doom, right? And activating that inner critic of growth. So, bringing this all sort of full circle, I like to say there's a 3-step dance to doing your best, right? In the, reaching for a better metaphor, symphony of life, where we're all trying to play our instruments, our parts without any rehearsal, right? It's improv jazz, right? I guess I should have started with that. Understanding and applying this concept of doing your best can sometimes feel like you're trying to tune a guitar in the middle of a thunderstorm, right? Yeah. But fear not. There's a lot of profoundly simple steps that you can take to ensure you're not just going through the motions, but you're dancing, right? To the rhythm of personal growth and positive impact. Step one, first step, reflection. As you give yourself that brutally honest debrief after whatever it is you want to get better at, ask yourself one simple question. Given the circumstances, could I have done any better? Given the circumstances, could I have done any better? And this is where you take that just a few minutes to pause and reflect, not to berate yourself for perceived shortcomings, but to honestly and objectively assess your efforts. Were you present there or were you distracted, right? Did you lean into the task with enough effort? Were you holding back too much? Put too much effort into it that stressed you out? Make sure that this reflection, given the circumstances, could I have done any better, is, I like to call it a fair and kind audit of your actions and intentions. So we've done that, we've reflected. Now, step two, connection. Given the circumstances, could I have made someone else better? Here's what kind of where you zoom out and take the bigger picture, right? It's not all about you. Remember, I've said many times before, the door to high performance opens outwards. So your actions and your efforts invariably ripple out, affecting those around you. So consider the impact of your performance, of your best, or what might have been close to your best, on others. Did you support somebody, uplift them? Did you create an obstacle? Did you find an opportunity to be a mentor or protege, right? It's your chance to evaluate how your effort intersects with the well-being of the team, the community, whether it's at home, at work, or anywhere. And then step three is the evolution of this. So the first one was, given the circumstances, could I have done any better? Second one is, given the circumstances, could I have made someone else better? The third thing is, based on those lessons, what will I do next time to improve on these? So armed with the insights from those first two steps, you're now in a perfect position to plot your course, right? Proactive growth, tangible, achievable goals on how you can better yourself and, by extension, those around you, right? So maybe it's just learning a new skill or seeking a little bit more feedback or fine-tuning your communications or simply practicing being present, mindful a little bit more when other people are interacting with you. Whatever it is, it's about committing to these small incremental improvements. Back when we talked about deliberate practice, right? Small incremental improvements that collectively turn into something big and steer you toward becoming the truly best version of yourself. So to sort of wrap this thing all up, doing your best isn't a one-off exercise. It is a way of life. It is a mindset. It's a cycle that's meant to be repeated and a habit that's meant to be cultivated. Initially, there's going to be a little bit of effort, right? But that improvement will eventually define you. It will keep you on your toes, constantly evolving and adapting. Doing your best is a personal journey, uniquely yours, uniquely mine. And it's not about perfection or living up to somebody else's standards at any given time, because remember, it's a moving target on a windy day. It's about striving for improvement, making a positive impact, and finding satisfaction in this knowledge that you are, through process, giving it your all, given the circumstances, in each thing you do. And trust me when I tell you this, the payback for beginning to understand that I tried my hardest and I do my best is an obstacle unless you can unravel it like we've done here today and turn it into something that is process-based, that gives you these authentic self-esteem and feedback that you need to make it effortless. Right? That's the real magic of what that little statement, doing your best, means. So lace up your metaphorical dancing shoes. and take these 3 steps to heart. Reflect. Could I have done any better? Connect. Could I have made anybody else any better? And evolve. What did I learn from this evaluation that I'm going to do differently next time? And in doing so, you're not going to not only uncover the best version of yourself, but you're also going to be a role model and inspire others to maybe start their own journey toward improvement. It's a pathway, and it's a pathway marked with intention, impact, and endless possibilities for personal growth. So let's wrap this whole thing up. Until next time, do your best. Keep sharing what we're doing with any and all you think might be interested in what we're doing here on the Only Human podcast. And please keep the feedback coming, because I'm trying to do my best. And I absolutely need your help to get there. So I'll see you soon.